So I'm Brad Armstrong, Head of Business Development and Corporate Development here at Slack. We have a really good panel with us today of investors and entrepreneurs who've been building on our platform. What's unique about this set of folks is they've both built on our platform from a technology standpoint, but also from a distribution and business model standpoint. And the latter is really the focus of this panel today. We're going to talk about distribution strategies, from pricing, from building in marketplaces, and then also kind of what results in sales and what doesn't, and kind of how the world of enterprise software distribution has changed, and also how it doesn't. So a lot of ground to cover and a great panel. So let's start with intros from our panelists.
Cool. Yeah, hey guys. So my name's Larry Gadea. I'm the founder and CEO of Envoy. Envoy is like a visitor sign-in system that when you go into somebody's office, sometimes they ask you to type in your name, email, that kind of stuff. We build that, and we build on top of Slack as well. It notifies people on Slack that your visitor has arrived, and you can go downstairs and pick them up, and you kind of know what they look like too, which is always nice. So yeah, we build that, and we've been with Slack for a while now, so it's great.
Hi, my name is Megan Quinn. I'm a general partner at Spark Capital here in San Francisco. We are, I guess, disclosures first, right? We are investors in Slack, fairly significant investors in Slack. We're also investors in the Slack Fund, so helping fund the next generation of companies that are building on top of Slack. And more importantly and relevant, we invest in a lot of companies that are also integrating and building on top of Slack, both, frankly, across consumer and enterprise.
Cool. And hey, guys, Rick Nucci. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Guru. Guru is a knowledge management app that replaces things like wikis and knowledge bases. We are built into things like Slack and Zendesk and Salesforce. We are one of the companies in the Slack Fund that Megan was just talking about, and our big partner. Probably something around 70% of our customers are also Slack customers.
Great. So one of the major contributors to Slack's success and why it's been adopted so widely was really the freemium model and also our fair billing policy. Freemium models have been around in consumer and now somewhat in enterprise for some time. Fair billing was really an innovation that suited us and has been one of the main things that I think de-risked kind of the trial period for a lot of customers. Curious to hear from you, Megan, about what you think of portfolio companies or companies that come to pitch from you and say, we're an enterprise company, but we have a freemium model.
Yeah, we definitely prefer that. So it's a little bit tougher if someone comes in and says it's all top-down sales on the enterprise side. It's going to be 6 to 9 months. That's just a little bit bigger of a hurdle for us to get over as investors. There's some really great things about freemium, and then there are some challenges that we have repeatedly seen companies go through and being able to navigate out of. So obvious opportunities around freemium is that you give people the opportunity to actually try and use your product, and not just to prove that you have product market fit, but that you have product market love, that people really find value in it and are ready to open up their wallets or checkbooks or swipe their credit card and prove that value through monetization. What we sometimes see on the freemium side, though, is that it ends up anchoring enterprise companies, enterprise SaaS specifically, of course, to a lower price point than what they can actually extract, and I don't mean to sound really hollow, but what they can actually gather from their end customers. Because people go from saying, hey, I don't have to pay anything, to, what do you mean you now want to charge me $17,000, $25,000, $100,000? So what we always advise our our companies is to be really, really thoughtful when rolling out freemium. It feels like something you can just do, like we're going to allow people to do this, and then we'll have this price point or whatever, and it actually takes a lot of thought, because inevitably you end up having to redo it. So I have yet to see an enterprise SaaS company that didn't have to redo their entire pricing plan at least twice within the first 5 years. And that's usually typically a result of having been anchored too low on the ACVs, average contract values, because of that freemium model. So being really thoughtful about what is freemium for you. Is it a limited number of users? Is it a limited functionality? Is it limited data throughput? There's a lot of different ways to model that, but then making sure that you're building out from there a sustainable business plan around pricing that works. And I have some other examples of that. But
no, that's super insightful. I think the anchor towards free can be something that weighs heavily on companies. And I think a lot of different companies have found different solutions to it, but I think once the perception is out there and there's an assumption that a product's free, that's a hard thing to shake, right? And it's also a hard thing to extract value from, to be hollow myself as well. I think another thing that that results from a freemium model is that the investment sometimes on the part of the company that's adopting you and the user base is different than if they had to pay for it, right? And so people value things that they pay money for, and they pay money for things that they value, and so you have to get over that hurdle too. I know, Rick, you at Guru experimented with the freemium model and ultimately pivoted against it. So interested to hear how that ride was for you.
We did everything Megan just said, basically, but instead of in 5 years, like in the first year. So we maybe accelerated learnings.
Twice. That's good.
So we definitely did a freemium. I would say the freemium, it depends on the type of product, so not all products. So for example, Gurus, you have to set up Guru. You have to put content in it. You have to migrate it from some other thing before it's adding any value. It's no good to you empty. And so when we were doing freemium, we would find engagement would just sort of linger because people were creating these accounts and then just sort of like moving on to other projects. So we switched to a time-based model. We do very much agree that best product wins. Well, if best product wins, put your product first, let people put their hands on your product. Very core thing that we think is super important, but we do it more now in a trial mode. So we do a 3-week trial. We're still experimenting with what the right time is, but the whole idea is to enable people to try it, introduce certain members of their team to it, let them experience what it's like using Guru alongside their applications. That was a pretty much like instantaneous improvement in both conversion and engagement in the product growth of the customer base. So definitely like something we changed and like didn't look back on.
I imagine it was also very good for your efficiency, because one of the challenges that you can have with freemium too is that you have a customer service team or an engineering team that is now addressing an audience that frankly they're not getting money from.
Yes.
So maybe they should actually be focusing on the people who have high potential
Yes.
from a contract standpoint, and that's where sometimes freemium can be a bit of a challenge.
Just don't look at those costs. It'll be okay.
Just don't look at those costs?
Yeah, don't look at those costs. They can sometimes be high. Giving full support. So we have a freemium model. We don't really rely on it for revenue, but we rely on it on more people finding out about our product. For us, it's kind of like visitors, the primary distribution method for us is visitors go into an office, they sign in on there, and they remember the thing. They're like, okay, I've been seeing this thing everywhere, we should get it at our office. And then they bring it back to their own office. So, and they can be paid or not, and there's some fraction that will be either way. Yeah, so it's really important that even for our free people, we treat them with just the same amount of attention and quality as we would a much smaller or a much bigger company, just because we want to set that impression that like if you're going to be doing business with us, if you're going to give us money, it will be effective. And yeah, so for us, it's kind of, we don't do that well, I think, at converting our free people to paid people. At least we don't have very strong initiatives right now for it, but we will at some point. However, it's wonderful at getting the concept of, I'm seeing this everywhere, really working. And that's really important for us as kind of our viral distribution to have that mentality, if that company's paying or not. And we actually don't distinguish between a free and a paid customer, except for certain features that they conveniently don't have to sign an NDA, or they don't get a badge printed. That's odd. Well, that company probably isn't paying for it. So that's kind of how we let our customers discover it, but yeah.
Yeah, I guess it goes without saying. I mean, the underpinning of all this is that freemium is a model for customer acquisition at the end of the day. It's not a business model necessarily. It's an acquisition model for new customers. So
well, that's the interesting thing about what Larry just said, which is kind of there's no delineation between free customers and not free customers. And I think within that is an assumption that you're perpetually converting free customers into paying customers. But, to your point, like that may not bear out in the long run, right? And so at some point, is there a line when you differentiate and say, you're a free customer and that's great, but you haven't converted for 2 years and we're supporting you with the same dollars and with the same expense that we are customers who pay us a lot of money from a return standpoint and from an investor standpoint.
For us, we got like out of that free customer who's been online for 2 years, they've probably given us 5, 10 paying customers. So it's like, cool, yeah, like, we'll support you all we want and can because you will give us money in some way. And then that allows us.
You're relying on the viral effects
Yeah.
of your product that derive from the free users.
Yeah,
as well
they're
as the paid
critical.
users.
They're critical.
Got it. Great. Another topic that's I think relevant for this group in particular is other platforms and marketplaces. And obviously, you're going to want to build your product in a way that you have control over it, but you're taking advantage of the Slack interface. You're taking advantage of maybe other platforms from a technology standpoint, but also from a distribution standpoint because they have a lot of users. They have users that are narrowly targeted towards use cases that appeal to your platform and to your product. Interested to hear kind of your thoughts on that, Larry.
Yeah, platforms are like, they're kind of a godsend because they give you all this free marketing, and all you have to do is like build a couple integrations, and like their user bases are just wonderful. They're looking for things to integrate the product with. Like there are IT buyers, and I don't know who exactly your exact buyer is for Slack, but like let's just say it's IT. They are literally looking for things to integrate with, and they browse through all those pages, and they go through a lot of pages like, oh, there's this Envoy thing. What do they do? And then they go on there, and we know that they're coming from Slack's directory, and then they end up signing up for our product and trying it out, and oftentimes becoming paying customers. But it's wonderful. It's basically free marketing, and we do this with a variety of other people too. Like we integrate with Box and Dropbox for document storage. So if a visitor signs in and they sign an NDA, we put it inside of their Box account. And when we do that, it's now we got the legal department that's really excited about Envoy suddenly, but also that's another place people can discover our product. And the same goes for like Wi-Fi systems. The same goes for different kinds of printers. The more partners, I guess the more partners you have, the better, but like the more integrations you can have and the more directories you can get listed on, even if it's something like HackerOne, which is like a great way of doing like what's it called, a program for getting reports whenever something's broken with your thing. We get listed on there and people discover us on there, and it builds trust with people that they see your brand a lot. So yeah, I love it.
So is your integration strategy more driven by marketing or product?
Product.
Okay.
Yeah, well, me, but product. Because
Okay.
it's just, our history has just been to integrate with as much as we possibly can.
Got it.
Yeah.
I mean, the marketing component that Larry talks about is important, and especially if you're an early stage company, there's a lot of brand value of being associated with a really big platform. So if a big platform, and I put Slack in the bucket of big platforms now, or Salesforce, or so on and so forth, if they're going to lend you some of their brand equity and hold you up, it's always nice to feel and look bigger and more sophisticated and so on and so forth than you actually are as an early stage company. So traditionally, especially in the early stage side, we encourage companies to really think through thoughtfully those different integration opportunities. As you get later stage and you're able to stand on your own 2 feet and you've got your own customer base and you are actually bringing real value to the table, you need to be really thoughtful. First and foremost, typically these integrations on the enterprise SaaS side are driven by customers. I mean, we will have customers for some of our products at various companies who just simply can't use us if we don't integrate with Salesforce. And obviously, we need to fit into their workflows, and we're not going to say, like, we're not going to play ball because, you know, Salesforce is the 5,000-pound gorilla and we're nervous about it. Like, we need to provide and be a piece of that seamless workflow internally.
And they like that. Like, those companies that you integrate with, they love it, and they promote it and all this stuff. It's all this, like, free press. It's wonderful.
They like it so much they might even charge you for it.
Yeah,
Exactly.
They might even put you on stage. It's really scary.
Did you have someone particular in mind when you made that?
No. No, I'm not claiming that from personal experience.
Yeah, I think, so our product strategy is to be where people are already working. So the platform thing was how we started Guru. I mean, we started focusing on the web browser because people work in the web browser. They use SaaS applications in their web browser, so they need to access their knowledge in the web browser. So our first platform was Chrome. And then we expanded to the other browsers. And then when Slack launched their market, we expanded there, and since added Zendesk and Salesforce. And so it's been really interesting. It's been, for us, less about leads and more about the idea of being able to talk about being where everyone works. So it's like a core pillar to the strategy of Guru and where we go. I think it'll always be something we look at as like, where are people spending their time? on an ongoing basis and making sure that we're living there, basically.
Yeah, I mean, I do think there's a substantial amount of overhead that comes with maintaining integrations, especially to more complex platforms. And I think that early stage companies can go whole hog and regret that later on, because once you have customers hooked on those integrations, it's tough to get them off, and they're tied to valuable systems of record and all the rest. How would you counsel prioritizing?
Yeah, I mean, at the early stages I mentioned before, it's really around someone who's going to lend you some brand equity, and it's going to be valuable to your end customers. And so typically it's not just purely marketing, purely product, it's also a little bit of a business development conversation, because you really do have to ruthlessly prioritize your building resources. On top of that, and maybe this is a little awkward given we're at the Slack conference, but historically value has accrued to the platforms that get other people to integrate and build on top of them. So if you have aspirations as a company to be your own platform, to be the standalone center for whatever sort of workflow or audience or customer that you speak to, it's a little bit like playing chess, and you need to be really thoughtful about which relationships are going to add value over time, or which ones are you just doing so that you have like a badge on the website.
Yeah, multiple platforms. So every company, a lot of the really big companies, they will have a platform of their own. One of the big reasons why Slack is able to get so big is because they have this platform, and all these people are developing all this stuff for them. So if there's a new competitor of Slack that were to show up, they can't get all these third parties to suddenly build all the same stuff. So there's really good lock-in there. Almost all, I need to really look at this, but like almost all 100 million, billion-dollar companies will have some form of platform. Be it like Apple, who has like an app store, be it Slack, who has their integrations, be it like anybody else, there will be some sort of third-party ability to build on it. So, and it's okay for one company to have a platform and another one to have a platform too. You just kind of link to each other, and somebody does the OAuth, and then it's all okay. And it just works. Yeah, so that's how we look at it too. And you can be sure that Envoy will have a platform at some point, and you're going to be able to integrate into it somehow, and it'll be wonderful, because that's how companies become big, and that's how we get great people like yourselves to build wonderful things. So yeah, it is really important. I do want to mention one thing. So you mentioned sometimes it'll get really interesting. So we have these Wi-Fi integrations for our product, and the way that works is like there's like an iPad on the front desk, and like you sign in on it. But what we do is we talk to the on-prem Wi-Fi controller to generate a username and password for that visitor, and then tie it to the visit. So that's a really cool feature, and companies pay the big bucks to use it, so I like that too. But what's really cool about it is that we have this problem where we have a couple of our partners. We have like Cisco and Aruba and Aerohive and all these guys, and they're all really excited to work with us until they find out that we're working with everybody else. And then they're like, oh, I guess it wasn't that genuine, huh? Or like, it's like, no, we love all of our partners equally, and it's like, it's all wonderful. But that is a problem you have to deal with, and it's really real. So kind of what we do is we kind of build more features for the one we really love more. So that's kind of the distinguishing thing. But then we could say we integrate with everyone. And most of the time, the RFP only wants you to integrate, so you're good to go. But yeah.
We, the product answer to your question, Brad, we prioritized by use case. So a product like Guru, we talk about as knowledge management. It could be used for a million different things, right? Employee handbooks all the way to customer support. So we picked first sales teams. That was like our first use case. And so when you know who the user is, the specific user within the org, the line of business, that takes the sea of platforms you could consider and like really narrows it down. And then we said, okay, within there, it's going to be, Chrome and Salesforce and Slack. And then we went to support teams. And really it kind of like focused our efforts there, and it's allowed us to go deeper with a fewer number of things, which for our type of product has been really important, instead of being, I guess like kind of like broad and maybe like a little diluted in focus.
And was that a conscious decision that you made, or did that arise organically from customer experiences?
I think, from customer conversations, we learned where is the problem we solve most acutely felt, where is it impacting the business the most. And what we learned was it's really the customer-facing people that if they can't get the knowledge they need to answer the customer question, really bad things are going to happen. So that dictated our focus around, okay, let's start with really helping sales teams, support teams, et cetera. That then drove our whole distribution model and how we do our outbound prospecting and learning like that repeatability of who exactly uses and cares about the product, and I think helped us quickly build the right product, because we were, if you reverse that and you do inbound and you get 100 different people with 100 different use cases hitting you, well, how do you know which thing to address first with the product? That was a lot easier for us, relatively speaking, because we were seeing the same patterns. We're seeing the same asks, same enhancements, same use cases, and it helped us like get the product to where it needed to be faster, I think.
So you feel like, I'm not going to say a lack of inbound demand, but a conscious focus on being outbound allowed you to get the feedback that you needed to really find product market fit.
Yes. Okay. And companies I worked on before, we didn't do this, I think, by being, finding those ideal customer profiles and iterating and testing the messaging. One of the really cool benefits of that from a product management lens is you're going to get really consistent views on things, and you're not going to have this like sea of input where you're like, how do I decide what to do with all of this stuff? That like looking back, I didn't have the foresight going in that happened. Like looking back, like wow, that was a really cool consequence of doing that outbound model.
So given that this is a conference for Slack and our platform, and many of the people in the room are building applications and businesses on our platform, how have you effectively gotten return from your investment in our platform?
So for us, it's very clear. A visitor signs in, and then something needs to happen pretty soon, and that's that host needs to know that a visitor has arrived, and they go downstairs and say hello. What's cool with us is that everybody uses Slack. It just makes sense. And because of that, it was a no-brainer to be like, okay, well, what can we do with Slack such that these visitors or these hosts know that their visitor has arrived? So for us, it's easy. A visitor arrives, they sign in, and then we notify them using a bot on Slack, hey, your visitor has arrived. And we show the picture, we have like the little fields that they typed in, so then when somebody goes downstairs, they kind of know who to look for down there.
You show the picture?
We show the picture.
I'm learning of this.
Yeah, no, it's really fun.
Horrifying.
You should ask your host for that.
Once someone's a repeat user, it's the same picture they had last time, so I get like people coming in, I'm like, oh, they have a beard in the picture, and who's this guy?
Yeah, so we also have a product called Envoy Passport, which is for visitors, and you can have your own picture where you add a hat or whatever, and then that picture is the one that's shown. However, a company can override that, so sometimes you do have to have the like awkward one where you're looking down and like that kind of thing, but security or something.
Return for us has been huge. I'd say it's less that we're on the Slack app directory and people are finding us that way and coming in. We see that, but that's less predictable is probably the best word. It's more so that when we're having a conversation with the teams that we work with, and they tell us they're already using Slack, we are very differentiated over alternative solutions because we're so deeply ingrained in. If they're already using Slack, it means they've already rethought how they're doing internal workflows. They're already thinking about what it means to have a bot-centric way to do business processes. So the way we do verification and Q&A and all the things that are built into our bot in Slack just resonate right away. So I would say for like the measurement, like the return is more like our win rates go up. So like if you're a prospect and you're using Slack, the chance that you'll become a Guru customer goes up substantially versus if you aren't. If you're using
if you're targeted, you're a prospect who's using Slack for customer support and sales, which means you're very well qualified for you.
Yep, exactly. Yeah, totally. It's been great for us.
Make more money. That's great.
Our return on our investment in Slack is probably TBD, technically speaking.
I think you're doing pretty well.
But we're doing great. There's a couple ways that you and I have talked about that actually we use Slack as investors. So first and foremost, Spark doesn't do any internal email. So everything is done in Slack. All meeting notes, pitch decks, decision memos, every single thing that you can think of or imagine that a VC firm does, it's all done internally on Slack and within various channels. Second, sort of even more concrete, is that we strongly ask, that's just short of require, that any company that we invest in set up a board of directors Slack. So I'm a member of a board of directors Slack for all the companies where I've invested. It has all of the investors that are in that company, as well as the founders and sometimes also the executive team. It's a great way to have really natural, frequent, but casual conversation with your investor group and the company. So you can talk about jobs or interesting people you met that might be good fits, or customers or wins, all in a way that doesn't feel quite as formal as the investor update. And so that's something that we've really, really embraced across our entire portfolio.
So as founder CEOs, is that level of transparency with your investors something you're looking for?
Oh, I'm up for that. Now, we were talking before, like, no offense, but if you're an investor, I'm not sure I want you in all of my channels in Slack, so there may be some things that I might want to be able to talk to you about before you seeing it directly, but the idea of that is way better, yeah. Because, like, otherwise you're sending this email, it's, like, oddly formal, it's unnecessarily formal, and, like, yeah, I'd love, and, like, it's just faster, right? I'd love to be able to be like, oh, hey, quick thing, we just closed a deal, like, and just send that real quick. Like, I think it's a great idea.
I was telling these guys before, it's also a very good way to apply a little bit of peer pressure and competition between investors, because an investor will chime in and be like, hey, here's a resume for a really great candidate, or I can intro you to this VP at some account you want to close. And then all the other investors are like, oh, how do I add value?
Yeah.
You know,
And
they're chiming in with their intros. So
they're all
it's all
trying
good.
to add value. Yeah, no, it's really cool. Like so we don't do it right now, although this sounds like a great idea. I don't think it adds to the, like, I don't think there's a level of creepiness to it. You're going to say if you wanted to, if you don't want to say certain things to investors, you won't, be it on Slack, email, or whatever. And I think it actually makes the less formal of a relationship you can have with your investors, the better, is where I'm at right now. Maybe as we get bigger and, like, there's, like, bigger checks or something, maybe then it gets weirder and I have to be more formal. But so far it's benefited me wildly well to just be informal with our investors. So that's really nice. Slack sounds like a great place to do that. Yeah, it's cool.
You should try it.
Yeah.
So shifting gears a little bit, you know, I don't think that Slack could have achieved what it's achieved if we'd come about 10 years ago. I think, you know, a lot of things have changed. A lot of barriers to entry into enterprise have come down. I think there's still a lot that remain, and I think, you know, frankly, we and a couple other companies are really pushing the barriers there. I'm curious to hear from you guys about kind of sales and self-service and where you're seeing the line of demarcation of, you know, when having some great experiences on other platforms can lead to lead gen, and that can fulfill a self-service business, as opposed to when you need to actually get out and sell and go through procurement and, you know, kind of all the rigors of enterprise software distribution.
Oh man, what I do to not have to do a procurement. Yeah, so yeah, it's a headache. So let me see here. So we have a model where we have both self-service and sales assisted. Self-service is wonderful because it's volume. They just, like, read the things on your website. They somehow become convinced, and then they give you their money, and then everyone's happy. It's a great exchange. Wonderful. You don't have to talk to them oftentimes, which is great. It scales. The problem is that you will not get big deals with a self-serve process.
What do you think that line is?
General Electric is not going to sign on for 100 offices of Envoy after a 14-day free trial. Like, that is not what they do. They have like finance people that hate the legal people, and, like, you got to get somebody in there to kind of, like, talk to them separately. And then there's, like, some other boss that wants to be involved for some reason, and everyone's a decision maker, and there's all this fighting and stuff. But it turns out that the value of having talented salespeople whose jobs it is to navigate that structure and work with them, you can land, like, instead of landing a 1 or 2 office deal with Envoy, they'll land a 20 or 100 office deal because they work better together, or, like, whatever the salesperson will come up with that adds them value. And so people are much pushed a little bit more and put more in, like, a timeline where it's like, listen, you gotta get on this. Let's have a call next week. Let's see where you are. And the moment you do that, it puts a little bit of pressure on them, which is completely healthy and okay. And they're still getting a product that they're gonna love, but it just speeds up the whole process and at higher dollar value, and it brings up your ACV, which is great for investment, and all these other wonderful things. But yeah. You need more people, though, which is unfortunate in your own company, because robots can't be salespeople.
I actually think the biggest change, to your point, this couldn't have been possible 5 years ago or whatnot, is that consumers have radically different expectations of the products that they use at work. BYOD, like people have been able to have these wonderful, immersive, amazing, engaging, fast product experiences when they're at home, when they're on their couch with their family, with their friends, and there's just no longer any patience for having a radically different and worse experience when they walk into their office. And so I don't think, to your point, like if there had never been text messaging, if people weren't used to texting each other, if iMessage hadn't been around and so on and so forth, I don't think there would have been an opportunity for Slack. But it was a result of people saying, how come I get to talk to my mom, my sister, my friends, these people I care about, whenever, wherever I am through this very low friction, enjoyable, engaging way, and then I have to go to the office and I suddenly have to like compile these memos on emails that feels like, hell. So that change of consumer expectations is really what has driven, in our view, the change in enterprise SaaS development over the last 5 years, if not longer. And that's put a lot of pressure in turn on CIOs. I'm sure there's some CIOs here. I love CIOs, but CIOs used to be the single...
Love our customers, it's
yes,
great.
But they used to be the single sole decision maker, and it went top down. The CIO made the decision, and everyone fell in line. And now you have people who want to keep their employees engaged, want to keep them happy, want to make them efficient, and the employees are saying, my expectations are different. I want to have things that work like I work when I'm at home, and I need you, my CIO, to make that happen.
But what do you say to a founder who comes in and says, we have this great product, and I think this whole procurement process and sales is anachronistic, and I don't buy it.
It sells itself. It's wonderful.
That's right. I mean, I'm sure you have plenty of founders who feel that way. How would you counsel them?
I think that, I think most founders that we talk to are a little bit more realistic about that, but frankly, it comes back to the freemium model, is that we encourage them to give the employee base, arm the employee base, frankly, with enthusiasm and love for their product, that they can in turn do some of that internal selling on your behalf. And so that's typically the model that we're seeing now and that we're strongly in favor of.
Yeah, I made the comment earlier, best product wins, and I think that's a new thing, sadly. Like I think 10 years ago, it wasn't the best product win, it was the best sales and marketing team that sold, because you're selling enterprise software with perpetual licenses, you're selling these big deals, and a year later when you actually deploy and go live, like anything could have happened to that on-prem software, customized it, upgraded, who knows what they were sold, and we've all seen like kind of where that's landed, and I think that's now not true anymore. I think now, even for big companies, like it is much more about the best product for, I think, a lot of the reasons Megan said. You asked about the demarcation line too, one of your earlier points there. Yeah. I think it's roughly 500 employees, because I think around that line, you start to see companies hire dedicated procurement people, dedicated security teams, dedicated IT leadership, and they play a role in the decision process. And you do need, the point about the salesperson who can navigate the organization and make that happen efficiently. I think it just happens, and I do think that part of buying software hasn't changed at all. I honestly think 10 years ago to today, like that process is what it is. It's really difficult. You have, your business leader who's chosen your product. You have procurement that has a different motivation. You have to keep everybody aligned and working together. And, what we try to do is make sure that our business champion is advocating on our behalf internally and not assuming that that's happening, because sometimes you'll go, yep, cool, I want that, great, and you'll kind of go off and do your thing, and then you can get all wrapped up in procurement and have this, you like lose the plot and be like, wait, like let's go back to what we're actually doing here. We don't need $27 million of liability for a $10,000, let's come back down to earth, so you really need like your business partner on the prospect side to help you, and like, those things I'm saying really were the same way they were 10 years ago, and I think you still have to find ways to move through that as quick as you can.
I mean, fundamentally, organizations that are big and complex have their own problems, right? And maybe if you're dealing with the CIO, you have this, but most likely you don't. Like most likely you don't have someone within a big company who knows how to sell or purchase $3 million of software from you. Yep. Because that's a bunch of different divisions who all have disparate interests and all the rest, and that's where the salesperson, has the expertise to go and herd all the cats within an organization and teach them how to buy from you, millions of dollars of software.
Especially with procurement, once they're involved, everything goes crazy. Because they're measured on really weird things too. They're measured on percentage off sticker price. And once they get around 70 to 80%, that's once their accelerators and bonuses start kicking in. It's really crazy stuff. But it's important in a company. It saves them a lot of money. I can tell you that for sure, because I've had to deal with it. But it is an important part of a company, and as it's bigger, it's much more likely for them to spend too much on stuff. So you got to deal with it, and you need good people that have dealt with procurement before to deal with it.
Getting down to the kind of end of the panel here, Rick, you mentioned things have changed on kind of the lower end, smaller companies, but when you get at a certain size and a certain scale, in the last 10 years, things have not changed. I want each of you to answer, in 10 years, where do things go? In your ideal world.
Or what's going?
Where does distribution go? All these things that we've talked about.
I think it's definitely all going to be about platforms. Everyone is going to have a platform, and they're going to integrate between each other. And I think that's really important because you don't want one company building everything. And that's kind of like the old Microsoft model where you just buy everything from one vendor. I think it's awesome that they can cross-connect. So that's integrations across everything is definitely a future.
I think we'll continue to see decision-making pushed to the edges. So even with Slack, slide a credit card, teams can get going. They don't have to talk to anyone. They don't have to go through some sort of process internally if they just have a small group that wants to do something. I think that that's a trend that, frankly, the toothpaste is out, and it's not going to go back.
Yeah, I think, today we go and log into software and use it. So we have all these different browser tabs open, this for my CRM, this for my expense reporting, this for my, I think 10 years from now, that's all turned inside out and the software comes to us based on what we're doing. So if I'm, at a meal, I finish dinner, I take a picture of my, you guys launched your expense bot last year with Concur, I think that's where it goes in 10 years. So if that's where it goes in 10 years, then yes, the way you find and discover and consume these things fundamentally changes. And it can't, there has to be a breaking point where you can't buy one thing from one vendor because you're going to inevitably find yourself dealing with, a really wide set of things that aren't really good at any, one thing. So I think it's a really exciting future.
Cool. Well, thank you so much for joining us this afternoon.
Yeah,
and let's give a round of applause to our panelists.
All right. Thanks.